Hi, good afternoon. Sister Rita from Brown Sister Speaks. We're here today with one of our sister stories, but today we're having a special story. We're having a young man. Name is CJ Bocachica, and he is going to be sharing his story. And the reason why we're doing this is because mental health, self-esteem issues, and things that involve our mental health affects all of us, every single one of us. And mental health is a subject that is not spoken about in our culture. It is not spoken about in a live audience, people of color. So, we're just bringing to light another story from another person in our community. CJ and I know each other through church, and I heard him share his story one day, and I was sitting there in tears, and I said, "Oh my gosh, he's got to share this story for coffee chat." So I asked him, and he agreed. So we're thrilled to have him today. Maria's with us today as well. Maria Vargas also works with Brown Sister Speak. She helps people with intellectual disabilities. The funny thing is, so does CJ, and so do I. So we all work with people with intellectual disabilities on a daily basis, and we just want CJ to go ahead and introduce himself.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is CJ Bocachica. I'm 20 years old. 20 years old. I'm 21, not 20. Yes. So, I attend church in the Bronx, the Fellowship, 1469 St. Peters Avenue. Quick plug there. I, as Zoraida was saying, I do the community of intellectual and developmental disabilities on a daily basis, and I help support people in that community. But Maria is not necessarily with them, although I work with them on a daily basis. But it's more my own kind of on in that kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but it's
mental health.
Yeah, there you go. My journey in mental health. It's been interesting to go along, and it's been tough, but where it has brought me to has been good. So you want me to just do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Share your story.
All right. So growing up, I was always I was like, I'm really outspoken now, but I wasn't always like that. It was not that I was shy either. It's just, I was more to my fan and kind of just like whatever. I'd be comfortable in the background and whatnot, and it was okay. But then when I went into middle school, I was bullied a lot, and people would call me names, and everything was me, that who I was criticized and ridiculed and made to seem wrong. So it was like nothing that was who I was perfect. There was nothing with me that was good enough to be like in the in crowd or be with like the cool kids. So you have it, whatever you want to call them. I wasn't good enough for that. I was the outcast. I was the one that would have lunch alone, kind of just sit there and be the teacher's pet, because the teachers were the only ones that would talk to me. So it was really difficult in middle school to kind of just find myself. And I feel like in middle school, that's where a lot of people start finding themselves. That's where, they develop like their own character and their own ideas of who they are. And my ideas of who I was were so misconstrued because of everything that I was being told from other people. And granted, some people are strong enough that they don't let that affect them, but deep down, regardless of how hard you think you are, or whatever, that stuff, it impacts your life in a very big way.
Right.
And for me, it definitely impacted my life in a really big way, because I started to see myself as they saw me. So everything they called me, I started to attach it to my identity, and not realize like I actually was. Like when you're a follower of God, like your identity is in Christ. Your identity is in the things that God says in His Word, the things that He calls you, the creation that He made. You were made in His own image, and I couldn't see that because of everything that was being spoken rather.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really difficult time of like just trying to find myself, especially like in high school. I wasn't bullied, but that was where I was struggling to find who I was.
Right.
I couldn't like, it was just so hard because all I kept hearing, and even still now, like sometimes you hear the voices that just tell you different things, that you're just not right the way that you are. Like there's something wrong, and you're never going to be good enough to do what you want to do or to accomplish the goals that you have in your life. And
Right.
so it it's a very difficult thing. But when you find an outlet, I think it is very important to find yourself. And for me, it was music. For me, it was singing. Anyone that knows me knows I'm singing 24/7 every day, all day. I probably annoy my parents with my singing, but it's it's my release. It's the song that's been placed in my heart from God that just helps me speak. Like
Right.
if there's not words that I can say, if there's not um, an idea that's clear in my head or something, like when it comes to music, whether it just be a song I write or just another song, there's always something I can connect to that in music that will explain how I feel and just put me at ease and put my at ease. And I feel like that's been a very important part of my life, and that's why worship to God is so important to me, because that's where I find myself. I find myself in my worship to God. I find myself in those moments where it's just myself and God, and I'm just pouring my heart out to God, and that's where I really who I really am. That's where I know that's how I know that I'm here for a purpose.
Right.
It's more than just to be here for whatever reason. I'm here because God placed me here for a reason. God has a design for my life,
Mm-hmm.
and through worship, I have found that music has been the thing that I
Right.
found to help me in that journey, to become comfortable with who I am, to love every part of me, love every characteristic I have, love how loud I am and how outgoing I can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I love myself, and some people they say that, and you're like, wow, you're really annoying because you sound so cocky, but it's not always. It's the journey that I've had
Hey,
to take to get to where I am, and I'm proud of it.
yeah. People struggle all their lives to get to where you're at.
Yeah,
And if you're there now, that's amazing, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Um, I mean, what would you say to someone that encountered what you entered, and how can they find you relatable in you sharing, like, what was your lowest point? Like, where did you get to in your lowest point when you were
Mm,
doubting and when you were believing? It's hard because when you hear the same thing, the same negative talk every day about you, towards you, there comes a point where people to believe it, to think, am I really like that? I must be
yeah,
like that. This is how they're perceiving me.
right.
So what would you say was like your lowest point? Where did you go at your lowest point?
This point, I think it was in eighth grade. I think it was. I mean, I had been bullied since fifth grade, so that's 6, 7, 8. That's 4 years. I had to do math real quick. Yeah, so that's 4 years of just being bullied and being told the same things daily. And my lowest point was me just really heavily considering ending it all. And the fact that if I ended it all, it would be easier because no
Mm-hmm.
one would care because I'd be gone, so I wouldn't have to deal with the fact that people are calling me names because it wouldn't matter because I wouldn't be
Right.
there. I wouldn't be alive to hear them say what they want to say about me, and that was my lowest point, feeling like my life worthless. That it was the breath I breathe on a daily basis was completely pointless. There was no reason for me to take up the air that will breathe. There was no purpose for me in my life at that point, and that was my lowest point, and a point that I rock bottom. I think it was lower than rock bottom. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was a hard thing, especially as an eighth grader. How maybe
Yeah, that's
12, 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Really
difficult.
young,
Yeah,
very young age. Yeah.
it was difficult because at that age you don't really know how to really deal with certain situations. And
Mm-hmm.
I I'm still a person that just doesn't like to open up to people about how I
Mm-hmm.
feel. So
Yeah.
I just kept everything inside, and I was
we're happy
just
you're
a
doing
ticking
this.
time. I was angry. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
angry and sad all the time, and there was no. I couldn't find a solution anywhere,
Right.
and the
I'm
solution.
right here. I'm sorry he's interrupting.
It's okay. the solution for me, the solution for me was just ending it all, and that was gonna be my answer. But
Right.
I just couldn't do it because the main reason I couldn't do it is gonna be kind of funny. I just don't like pain. So, and I don't like
He
pain.
doesn't like pain.
I don't like pain. So I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't. I wasn't gonna hang myself because I don't like pain.
Right.
I can't cut myself because just the anxiety of having to do that, like I can't. So it's funny, but like moment, I'm like, I was literally just trying to think of things like maybe if I hold my breath long enough, like that'll do it. Maybe if I like just crazy thing going through my head, trying to
Right.
how I can end myself.
Wow.
Yeah,
And the interesting thing is that at 12 and 13, what does a child think of at that age to do something like that to themselves? And the horror to think of how kids are just so mean to each other now
yeah,
today, that one child would cause another child so much pain and so much grief and so much mental distress, to
hmm,
the point where this other child does not live anymore.
yeah,
And it's like there's so much of a lack of love going on in our society, a lack of compassion and a lack of accepting others, that you would think that at this generation that we would have moved up to a place where things would be different, right?
hmm,
But it's kind of
Basically,
yeah.
scary. It's not.
It's not.
It's every generation kind of perpetuates the same things all over again. We are
Yeah,
humans, and humans continue to do the same things.
yeah.
we're not
You know,
breaking any
but how
stigmas.
would you say?
Yeah.
What do you think turned it around? Like, where did you turn that corner?
It was my freshman year of high school. Um, I had now through it all. Like I grew up in church, so I was always in church. So I knew of God, and so I had encounters with God. Um, but the interesting thing with like encounters with God, an encounter with God, sometimes people tend to just go with you. And emotion can only take you so far. And up to that point, up to until I had gone into the retreat that I'm going to tell you about, was all emotional encounters with God. That is, for that moment, it seemed okay. But as soon as I went back home, it all was back to where it was before. The
Mm.
same thoughts, the same feelings, the same anger, same sadness was all back there. But when I got to ninth grade, the church that I'm in now it was the church's first youth retreat that I was a part of, and we went. Forgot where the camp was. I don't remember where the camp was, but we went to camp, a bunch of us, a bunch of youth and the youth leaders, and it was the most impacting moment in my life where I realized how real God was. And like I said, I grew up in church. My parents are now pastors after years and years of ministry. So I've always seen ministry happening. I've always seen, leadership. I've always seen how it moves, but it was never real to me. I had experienced some things with God, but like I said, it was just emotion. It wasn't anything like that would last me. And when we went away, I had an encounter with God. It was just like I was looking for something, but I didn't know what to look for. But I didn't think it was going to happen. So I was kind of just there because it was a retreat. That's what you do as a youth. You go to these retreats, at church. And so I went there, and I forgot what night it was, but I was singing, of course. I was leading worship. Been doing it since sixth grade. I've been leading worship, but I was leading worship, and I something in me just shifted. I couldn't even now, like, words can't explain like the shift that I just felt. Like, it was an instant shift of just everything. And when I went right before I went to bed that night, like, I took a moment and I breathed, and it just felt like an overwhelming feeling of love. And it was something, and it wasn't like a love for like other people, because that wasn't that I had of loving people. Like, I knew how to love people. I just didn't know how to love myself. And that's the feeling that was so brand new to me when I was laying in that bed it was like the last night of the retreat. I was just laying in my bed, and just an overwhelming feeling of love just came over me for myself. And I began to see myself, or at least get a glimpse of what God sees me as. As he sees me like this beautiful creation that he designed for a purpose, that he placed desires in my heart for a reason, that I'm the way that I am because he needs me to be that way. I'm loud and outspoken because he needs me to be loud and outspoken. I'm going person because that's how he needs me to be. I talk the way that I talk. I walk the way that I walk. I look the way that I will look because God needs me to be that way to reach a certain group of people that the next person can't.
That's right.
So I began to realize all these things, and it's still a process. It's not like I'm perfect or anything, but that was the start of my shift in my way of thinking.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But CJ, you're perfect because you are perfect in God's eyes, and He
Right.
perfectly made you this way for a reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's still right. And that's still something that's hard to ask, and it's hard to understand. I don't think ever in this life anyone can understand and say I'm perfect just the way that I am. It's still difficult. You have those thoughts. There's always something that you find wrong with yourself. There's always something,
right.
That
Well, especially because society is always looking for a way to change us.
Right.
And something more that we need to fix up about ourselves,
Yeah.
And can we just be perfectly fine the way we are, sitting in this chair the way that we are?
Right.
And, if you want to change something, that's fine. But, at the end of the day, this inner you that you have is perfect the way it is,
Yeah.
And we are all a work in progress, always a diamond in the rough that's always getting perfected every day. There is a misconception that, sometimes there are some churches who say, get out, pray it out. And not so much about that. There's no perfect fix. There's not a perfect cure. One thing isn't a cure. Some people need to go to therapy. Some people do need medical help. There are some people that get to the point where when they get to that bottom, we have seen now children be victims of cyberbully to the point of ending their lives, and I really want to capture that person and say there is more to you than the you that you see right now.
Absolutely.
And let's take that you and do something other than what you're thinking of doing right now, and know that this is, a situation that's only for today, but there's still tomorrow. And so we want to motivate those people to go talk to someone about it, who can help you. You know, what would you say to a youth in that situation? What tips would you give them?
Talk to somebody, because that was like one of my hard things was talking to anybody. Even until recently, like nobody really knew what I went through and
Hmm.
that I felt in that time of my life. I mean, like my parents knew that I was being bullied, but they didn't really know like the severity of it, and they didn't. I don't think they knew like the impact
Hmm.
that it had on me as I was growing up. So I just talk to somebody, whether it's your parents, it's someone you trust. That's I wouldn't talk to a peer, but I would find someone that you trust that's an adult that has lived life,
Right.
and talk to them and just let them know how you're feeling, whether they have something to say back or not, but just get it out there. Don't hold it in, because the more you hold it in, the more it's just going to build and it's going to break you down even further.
Right. So, today we want to reach out to the youth in this because I personally, I have three kids.
Mhm.
One's 21, one's 18, boys, and I have my 6-year-old daughter. And I can definitely tell you that my 18-year-old encountered bullying in fifth grade because he was the most petite out of the boys. He didn't sprout out and get his height going until like ninth grade.
Mhm.
So for a while, it's like all that acting out that I saw, I didn't know that acting out was a result of being bullied.
Yeah.
So, I want to say to parents that if you're a child changing their behavior, all of a sudden now really angry, upset, introverted, not being themselves, in the house or doing things that are really abnormal, to dig deep, give them a lot of love, give them a lot of attention, find them someone else if it's that they're not opening up to, where they will talk about it. Sometimes kids don't want to talk to mom and dad about it,
Mhm.
but they need someone to talk to about it. An older mentor, a school teacher, a school counselor, just someone. Because it is a very difficult time. It's a very challenging age in our society right now. It seems to be like more advanced emotionally, more advanced mentally. They're growing physically faster now than they used to. So we have to be there. No. So definitely, I would say that to parents. And when people view this video, they're going to be able to see a link. We're going to put on the bottom. Suicide National Prevention Hotline, the text line for people to be able to text or talk if they have a crisis. But it's not suicide, it's a crisis when you're feeling stressed out, when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling like there's no one there. You can at least text to this number, and it's a crisis line. Someone will just kind of help you get through all your moments until you're ready to see someone personally. So we're going to provide some resources with this video to be able to use as much as parents or youth or anyone who have any issues. They'll be able to follow a link online or follow a link on their phone.
Yes.
So thank you so much, CJ, for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
You are amazing. If someone's locally around, they need to come sing because he sings so beautifully. And then you hear him sing and you don't even think it's him singing because it's got this like little accent going on with his voice. I told him he belongs to Texas because he's got a little twang. But this is a story that definitely needs to continue to be heard. Thank you for allowing us to share it with the public and to share it with the world. And we just pray that this will be a blessing on someone else.
Amen.
And that they'll get something out of it. And I'm sure it's going to resonate with a lot of people. Yeah. So thank you so much for being with Brown Sisters today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime. You're welcome. All right. Anybody wants to find us, we're on Facebook as brownsisterspeaks.org. We have a website. We also have a support group in English and Spanish on Facebook. It's a closed group, so if anyone feels that they need to come in and talk to someone with a non zone, no age requirement, feel free to drop in, ask to join our support group. We will be there to support you. It is a peer group. And then if you need any resources, we are also have resources that we can share with everyone. And we're always doing things within the support group to try to everyone. So anyone who's out there listening is welcome to join in. And thank you so much for being a part of Brown Sister Speaks chat today. And you guys have an awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice
Thanks, Maria.
to meet you. Bye.
Bye, guys.